Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore a really powerful narrative that proves how shifting your mindset quite literally dictates your reality. The material we're unpacking centers on a timeless truth. A person's greatness is entirely determined by their thoughts. I mean, it's a concept we've seen proven over and over again by massively successful people. Think Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. But we're going to look at exactly how that internal shift actually happens, step by step, using this incredibly fascinating story about a complete transformation of identity.
Okay, let's jump right into this with a famous quote from Napoleon Hill's classic book, Think and Grow Rich. What you think about, you become. This pretty much sets the thematic foundation for everything we're exploring today. Now, I know it sounds super straightforward, right? A bit of a cliche, maybe? But the source material actually challenges us to look much deeper into the mechanics of this idea and how it practically plays out in the real world.
Because, think about it, if our thoughts truly do shape our reality, we have to ask ourselves this absolutely critical question. Why do so many people struggle to succeed? Do they just not think about their future? Do they somehow completely fail to see their own potential? Well, to figure that out, our source introduces a central story about a beggar at a railway station, and this narrative is going to help us unpack exactly what holds people back and, much more importantly, how to break free from it.
All right, Section 1, the mindset of success and the setup. So picture a busy railway station. We've got a beggar who survives day to day just by asking passing travelers for alms. One day, he spots this very confident, well-dressed businessman. Seeing the expensive suit, the beggar naturally stretches out his hand, fully expecting a pretty generous handout. But instead of just handing over some cash, the businessman stops and asks him a genuinely shocking question. He says, "Do you always just take from others? Have you ever actually given anything to anyone?" Startled and frankly a bit confused, the beggar replies that, well, he's just a beggar. He survives by asking for alms, and he has absolutely nothing to give to anyone.
Which brings us to Section 2, the law of exchange.
This really uncomfortable confrontation introduces a fundamental concept, which is exchange. The businessman smiles a little bit and explains his personal philosophy. He tells the beggar, if you believe you have nothing to give, then you also have no right to ask for anything. He explains that, as a businessman, he operates on mutual exchange. Basically, if the beggar can offer him something, he'd be happy to give something in return. But since the beggar firmly believes he has nothing to give, the businessman says he simply can't give him anything either. And with that, he boards his train and is gone.
Moving right along to Section 3, a shift in perspective.
So the beggar is just left standing there, literally stunned. For the next 2 days, he doesn't ask a single person for a coin. He's tossing and turning at night, just churning through this harsh but honestly incredibly true feedback. And this specific realization just keeps echoing in his mind on a loop. If you want to receive, you must first give. He suddenly realizes the businessman wasn't being cruel. He was just stating facts. For the very first time, the beggar understands that the reason people never gave him much was because he offered them absolutely nothing in return. And this triggers a massive internal shift, moving him from a victim mindset of "I have nothing" to actively looking around for what he can actually offer.
Then, on the third day, sitting there at the station, it hits him. He notices this patch of really vibrant wildflowers blooming right near the tracks. He thinks, what if I give people a flower every time they give me alms? So he plucks a handful of them, heads back to his usual spot, and when someone hands him a coin, he smiles and offers them a fresh flower in return. It's a simple, zero-overhead business model born entirely from his immediate surroundings.
And guess what? The results were immediate and honestly pretty surprising. People accepted the flowers with genuine joy. Some even went out of their way to thank him. As the days went on, something incredible started happening. His overall daily take increased significantly. He noticed a very clear pattern. As long as he had flowers to give, people gave generously. The moment he ran out of flowers, the donations dropped back down. He had essentially proven the businessman's theory to himself. People genuinely like to receive something in return.
Let's look at Section 4, the identity transformation.
Soon after this new routine starts, the beggar spots that same businessman getting on a train again. Super excited, he runs over and proposes a trade, money for flowers. The businessman smiles, accepts the trade, hands him some cash, and takes the flowers. But the real magic happens next. He verbally validates this profound shift in the beggar's status. He looks at him and says, "You have truly understood the value of exchange. Today you are no longer just a beggar. You have become a businessman." As the train pulls away, the sheer weight of those words really sinks in. He's thinking, am I really a businessman now? And that's the breakthrough. That is the exact moment he realizes the secret to success. He tells himself, I'm not just a beggar, I am a trader.
He finally gets that people aren't paying him out of pity anymore. They're paying for the actual value he's providing. He realizes, I have a business.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Rewriting Your Reality.
Armed with this entirely new, powerful self-image as a trader, he makes a bold decision. He decides to leave the railway station and vows never to return as a beggar again. From there, his trajectory just skyrockets. Think about this timeline. We go from that harsh initial rejection on day 1 to the flower strategy on day 3. Now, fast forward to 6 months later. At that exact same railway station, 2 sharply dressed men meet and shake hands. And one of the men suddenly realizes, with total shock, that he is shaking hands with the very beggar he once refused to give a handout to.
The former beggar just laughs and confirms it's him, explaining that he's definitely no longer a beggar. He now runs a highly successful flower business and is actually traveling to expand it. When the astonished businessman asks him what on earth changed, the former beggar replies, "You taught me one of life's greatest truths. We only receive when we give. That day I realized that I was never really a beggar. I was a businessman all along. I just had to see myself that way."
Bringing this all together, the core takeaway from this entire narrative is just profound. Life is shaped by how we see ourselves. The source material spells it out so clearly. If you believe you're small and you cling to a victim mindset, you are absolutely going to remain small. But if you recognize your inner potential and actively choose to see yourself as capable, strong, and successful, you open the door to true greatness. Those 2 men, they shook hands as equals and boarded their trains toward their respective futures.
So, since the ultimate lesson here is that when your thoughts change, your future changes right along with them, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to consider for your own life. How do you see yourself? Are you just standing there asking the world for handouts? Or have you recognized the unique value you can exchange? Don't limit yourself. Change your mindset. And as this story so perfectly proves, your reality will follow. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring your potential. Catch you next time.